Hello, my name is Jayanti, and I have a master's degree in pharmaceutical sciences. I'm a compliance auditor and investigator by profession, with 14 years of international career that took me to few countries outside India. I'm joined by my friend Shireen, or I should say Dr.
Hi,
Shireen. Hello, who holds a,
hello.
who holds a PhD in physics from the Space Physics Laboratory of the prestigious Indian research organization ISRO. So, how are you doing, Shireen?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very well, very well. And I'm
Yeah.
excited to discuss about the topics that we plan to do.
Yes.
Today, Shireen and I would like to discuss on few misconceptions titled as Sexism in Torah on a website called evilbible.com. It seems this website is a frequent source for those who share similar views on Torah or Christian God, and so we thought it's worth clarifying and, in fact, refuting those misconceptions. When we read through the Torah, the first five books of Christian Bible, are also called as books of Moses. Uh, they, they are like Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. We need to keep in mind that these books are an accurate historic account of what happened. I say this because we see a significant evidences to the historicity and authenticity of Bible, both from textual and archaeological sources, widely accepted if only we are willing to explore the truth.
That's
In
right.
fact, there is significantly more documentation, ancient manuscripts that support the books of the Bible. I'm talking about the 66 books, than there are for other historically recognized authors and literature that we believe existed in the past, like the Greek philosopher Plato and the Iliad, the oldest works of Western literature. The Holy Bible is a God inspired book written by 40 authors over a period of 1500 years, spanning across three continents. God gave us the whole truth about biblical characters, their sin, their failures, their victories, good and bad deeds recorded in the Bible. This in no way means that God approves of them or condones their actions. If it was an attempt to magnify biblical characters and to make them heroes, the human authors could have just shunned away from recording the dark chapters of their lives. No one would ever know them. But
That's right.
among all religious texts and even in world history, Shirin, the authenticity and the accuracy of the Bible is all the more established by the fact that the lives of men and women are recorded without prejudice or partiality and preferences. And we see this
Absolutely.
throughout, attesting
That's right.
to the truth of the Bible, right?
That's
So,
right.
so with this baseline, Sharon, let's discuss on the different misconceptions that we see under the topic sexism in Torah on this website called www.evilbible.com.
Yes.
So let's start with the first introduction or the introduction to this misconception. This unknown author of this article, I say unknown because the website doesn't mention the name of the author, but so for now, let's call her the unknown author. She says sexism in Torah is quite rampant, and considering the Hebrews were once a very chauvinistic society when it was written.
Yes, there is some problem with the very introduction or the opening statement of this author.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, to call the Hebrews or the Israelites chauvinistic, it requires that the author has done a detailed study and looked into other ancient cultures that were existed at that time, other nations, other religions, their practices, the common norms in the society, and make sure that she has gone into all these details, and then she is coming to a conclusion that yes, Israelites or the Hebrews were very chauvinistic. But we know that she hasn't done that because she does
Yeah.
not provide any evidence, any reference to any literature or quoting any author. She does not give us any proof of any kind to call Israelites very chauvinistic. In fact, when we look into researches that have been done in the past by scholars, by historians, we see that it was not just the Israelites, but all other cultures and nations that existed at that time, especially in the Near Eastern cultures, they were all similar in the sense that women were subordinate to men. And whether you worship the God of Israel or you worship other goddesses like Asherah or any other goddess, we see that their cultural practices were kind of similar in the fact that men were in leadership position, women were subordinate to them. But of course, women of upper classes had more liberty, which isn't the case in most societies even today. But that was the situation. So to call Israelites a very chauvinistic society is not giving us the full truth. In fact, all societies were similar at that time.
Yeah, seems like that was the culture during that period of time in the ancient Near East. So, Sherin, it seems like the author did not do a thorough review of ancient Near East cultures before making this statement, right?
That is right. Yes.
Yeah, and this unknown author who calls herself a feminist, she finds it her duty to cite the following verses that we would discuss going on and remind her fellow women of the sexist pig Christians and the Jews are told to worship. Strong words indeed.
Very strong indeed.
Yeah. Well, it is indeed noble to make others aware of what is not right, provided the author has done her homework in understanding the context and culture of these ancient writings with an intention to being true to the text, which clearly is not the case, isn't it?
That's right. That is true. That is true.
So with this general introduction, we would then step into a series of discussions on various questions or various misconceptions this unknown author has put on this website called evilbible.com. Let's move on to this first section. So in this section, before we go into further discussion, we just had in our previous episode about the general introduction, why we want to do this discussion, and what are all these allegations and where are these allegations or accusations or even misconceptions available. So let's start with the first one. The author claims that sexism against Eve, or generally women, in general, as we look at events at the fall of the man and the consequences of the sin. So the author says that she cannot possibly list all the injustices that the Torah mentions, and then goes on to recall the story of Lilith, who was booted out of Eden for having sex with Adam, the first man, to how women are blamed for the fall from grace. That's one of the misconceptions there, Sherin.
Okay, so it is interesting because she mentions Lilith. Lilith is in fact not a character found in the Torah. Right. She is part of Jewish folklore, and her story was told by people much after, many years or centuries after the fall, after the record of the creation account in the Bible. Lilith came into existence as a mythological character. She's not part of the Torah. So that would beg the question, which Torah did the author read?
Exactly. And it's interesting that the author is feeling sorry for an imaginary character called Lilith.
That's right.
Not found in Torah that we all know of, but found in a Jewish folklore, right?
That's right.
But I'm glad that she mentioned the word grace in her rant. If she really understood what grace meant, she wouldn't have unnecessarily taken the pain of penning these false claims on this website. And this author also says that she had to settle for merely presenting a sample list as of now. So whatever we are discussing are a sample that she has presented. And she said she'll add more verses as she will thumb through the Pentateuch a second time, and suggest the readers in the meanwhile to feel free to utilize her excellent work, which she has done by just one reading of the Torah. Interesting. So let's look at another from this author, just after her first read of Torah. I quote, Genesis chapter 3 verse 16 says that all women must suffer great pains during childbirth due to Eve eating the fruit of knowledge and questions if it is just that humans should pay for their ancestors' sin, nor is a woman dying in labor somehow befitting a crime she did not commit, unquote. Would you like to respond on this, Sharon?
Yes. Before we go into the details of the fall and how the fall happened and the consequences of the fall, let us take a look at the creation account itself. Genesis chapters 1 and 2 accounts for the creation of man and woman, of course, of the whole universe, but
Right.
man and women in particular. When we come to verse 26 and 27 of chapter 1 of Genesis, it states clearly that God made man in his image. Man, in fact, man and woman in his own image. So man and woman were created in God's image, making them of equal worth and value before God. In creation, there is no separation of value or worth. They are both equal in standing before God.
Yeah.
Again, the following verses show us that the dominion that God gave to men and women alike over all other creatures, you will be fruitful, you will multiply, and you will have dominion over all living things. That was
Right.
not just given to Adam, but also to Eve. So God's design in creation is that man and woman, both made in the image of God, were equal in value and in worth in God's sight. So that again shows us that at the beginning of creation, God was not a sexist, making woman someone of lesser worth and
Low
value
value, yeah.
than man. So then when we go to chapter 2, we see the detailed account of the creation of woman. Now it says that God found man alone, or he felt the need to have a companion, a suitable helper. So Eve comes into the picture as a suitable helper to man. Now, usually the word helper or help is kind of a word that is of very less significance to us. Oh, she's just helping me. So, for us in modern context, the word helper might not give much significance or value. But in that context, if you go to the original Hebrew, we understand that the word helper is a Hebrew word which is pronounced as Asa. The word Asa means a helper who's in a very prominent, powerful position, who extends help to someone in a dire situation. This is twice used for Eve, for the woman in this context, thrice for someone who was in a powerful position, who rescued someone from a battlefield or failed to rescue someone. And for 16 times, it is used for God. God is my helper. God is the helper of his people. So this word Asa, used to describe the role of the woman as a helper to Adam, in fact means that she was in a very significant position, completing or complementing Adam in some way, thereby fulfilling the family.
Right. That's very interesting. And in Genesis 3, we see that the man and the women disobey God and fall into sin.
That's right.
Sin will be punished by a just and holy God, and so it was done.
That's right.
So I would like to bring out 3 arguments to show why God was not being sexist.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Maybe I'll share a couple of points and you can jump in, Sharon. Like, though it's true that Eve sinned first and then Adam, it was not just the woman who was judged and punished for her rebellion against God, if you carefully read the text. But also Adam and serpent as well. In fact, the serpent was cursed first. So it's kind of a package deal. All three got all sin, fell short, and then got punished. And God never holds Eve alone responsible for the sin, if you carefully read the text. But we see that it is equally counted upon Adam throughout the Bible. In fact, we see God asking Adam first in Genesis chapter 3, verses 9 to 11, regarding the disobedience, and only afterwards he goes to the woman. We see other passages of the New Testament, like Romans 5, 1 Timothy chapter 2, etc., where Adam is represented as the federal head of the entire mankind. It is remarkable to note the mention that sin came to the world through Adam.
Through Adam, that's right.
Also, while the punishment is being dispensed, it is first given to the serpent, only then to the women. So it's kind of a package deal, and the claim that only women is punished is incorrect.
It's incorrect. Also, along with that, we should also understand that Adam was punished as a responsible head of the family. He was not spared in any way. So God is not a sexist here. The whole article on this website is on sexism. But if Adam is equally punished as Eve, then there is no sex bias here. Also, one interesting point is Adam's punishment was that he would toil and he would labor, and he would struggle to make his family or provide for his family, and that would be a daily struggle for him. Even to this day, we see all those who work, they toil day in and day out, every day. It's a constant struggle for them. But look at the punishment given to Eve. It was labor pains, and that would happen only when she's bearing a child. So her pain or her punishment was for a limited time when she was in labor, giving birth to a child, whereas for Adam, it was a daily struggle. Adam would daily be reminded of the consequence of his fall, whereas the woman would only have pain at the time of labor. And along with this pain would also come a blessing. The only curse that had a blessing in it was that of Eve, because she would have a child. And we all know a baby or a child is one of the greatest blessings that God gives to mankind. So Eve's package, as you rightly said, had a blessing along with the curse. So that again is a beautiful picture of how Eve was in fact blessed through the curse.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't it amazing, Sherin, that though it was the woman who first sinned by disobeying God's command, which eventually led to the fall of the mankind, God in his great mercy chose the same woman to send his only son, Jesus Christ, into this world, who would be a bridge for the fallen mankind to get back to God. It's amazing that only God can turn a curse into a blessing in Genesis 3:16 indeed, isn't it?
That is right. That's absolutely right. Because the promise of the Messiah coming into the world is also told when the serpent is being cursed, the seed of the woman who is the Messiah. As you rightly said, it's amazing how a seed of the woman, Messiah, would be born through a woman and thereby redeem mankind. So that's the amazing grace of God. Even at work, even at the time of the fall, we can see that God is gracious in his plans towards mankind.
Right. So as we are discussing on the fall of the mankind and the sin and the consequences, let's move on to the second part of the author's argument. And so with this, goodbye till we meet again in another episode to discuss on the remaining misconceptions on sexism in Torah from the evilbible.com. So keep watching.